What's going on, guys? No guys here. Welcome back to another video. Now, in today's video, I want to go over the custom tactics and how I use them alongside dynamic tactics and D-pad tactics. How to set up your team efficiently. You know, there's many mistakes. I see people just use one formation and it completely messes up the entire tactics. And you normally don't have like a result change. So I'm going to give you my setup, what I basically use, the way I set mine up. Now, just as a kind of reminder, this is both for Seasons and Ultimate Team, and what the team you're seeing right now, this is solely for chemistry purposes. So I'm not actually playing, for example, Trent in right back. I'm actually moving him to a wing or a strike position. But the reason why I start him in a right back is because, as you can see, he gets a chemistry boost of plus 14. Finishing should be plus 15, but I haven't got 100 team chemistry. But I want him to have maximum finishing as possible. That's what I'm trying to say. However, if I use him in striker, for example, he won't even get maximum finishing even with the links. So that's the reason why I play him in right back. Now, as I said, the reason why I play this formation is solely for chemistry. I have certain players on full chemistry. For example, all I care about is De Jong, Kante, Trent, and Nedved. That's the only players I need on chemistry. Neymar, Bernard, and Ben Yedder wingers, so I don't really need their chemistry, the chemistry at all. So that's the reason why I use this formation. If I change any other formation, I can't get these specific links. Then in game, you go to custom tactics. Now the balanced tactic, this is the formation that you start with. So normally when you get into a game and you start with formation, people always suffer kickoff. I'm gonna tell you to prevent that in a second, but this is the formation that you start with. Now, let's say your opponent kicks off first and they have a home game. You're going to be starting with this formation. So when you change to, for example, another formation, for example, like your defensive or your attacking formation, which I'll get onto in a second, there's a split period, a delay period. Sometimes you could concede a goal from kickoff. Sometimes there's a long time between transitions between formations. So the best thing I recommend is balanced. Reduce everything to one, basically. And the reason why, and everyone will come back, as I said, remember, you're not actually using this formation in game. This formation is only for kickoff. So let's say you're in the beginning of the game, let's say, for example, you're not kicking off first. Let's say your opponent starts to play. You have to change to your main formation, so there's like a transition period. So just stay back while attacking on all these players, and cover center is what I'd recommend. So this is just solely for stopping the kickoff. Don't change to this. So when your opponent, let's say for example, you score a goal, don't change this formation. This is only just for you to prevent kickoff. Then you press L2, and you're going to see 4 other options. You're going to see ultra defensive, defensive, attacking, ultra attacking. Now, for example, in these ones, what you can do is you can click on one, and for example, you can, let's say for example, I want to keep playing balance, but I want to, let's say, have an option to play, I don't know, 4-4-1-1. You can go to formations and select a 4-4-1-1, and then what you can do is you can change the instructions in the player position in game, like that simple. So you're still starting in a 4-3-2-1, but this is only for in-game tactics. Now, what I recommend for a defensive formation, as I said, if I use Trent in striker. Now, if, for example, I play Trent, let's say, for example, I play Trent in striker, he wouldn't get chemistry. So this is the only reason, and the sole purpose I use this formation is only for chemistry. Just remember that. So the setup I have is ultra defensive, defensive, attacking, ultra attacking. Now the way I do it is my ultra defensive formation. It doesn't matter what order you put them in. You can put all attacking formation. These are just names, right? Think of it as A, B, C, right? A, B, C, D. So ultra defensive, I normally have a defensive formation to close the game out. Something like a 4-2-3-1 is what I'd recommend, a 4-2-3-1. Maybe all the players will come back on defense, stay back while attacking. So this is a formation I'll change to, as I mentioned, you know, when you're winning, you're 2-0 up, 70 minutes, maybe you want to keep possession of the ball, maybe you don't need to go forward anymore, maybe you want your players to come back. This is a very good formation to use in, for example, one I will change to. So this is a very, very good formation. So that would be my ultra defensive formation. That's kind of the one to close the game out. So let's say, for example, I go a goal ahead. I'll always change to ultra defensive. Plus, if you want to like kind of suss out your opponent, you can use the ultra defense tactic from the first minute. Just be a bit defensive, see what your opponent's doing, what his weaknesses are, and then start playing normally. Now the next are the 2 formations. Now defensive and attacking, I normally play the formations that I'm using for the entire game. So normally from the minute 1 I change either defensive or attacking. Now depending on my opponent, let's say for example on a starting menu and I see his team, and let's say for example I see he's got a very good team, I might use a narrow formation, maybe not with 2 strikers, because I might think, okay, I want a bit more defensive stability, right? They're both attacking formations, but a different style. Now, for example, you could play, for example, the 4-1-2-1-2 second variation, a narrow formation, So in this one, I have, for example, Trent in striker. He's on aggressive interceptions. He presses from the front and he's on false 9. Got my cam on stay forward. So it's a very attacking formation. I want my players to be forward. I want to be attacking as much as I can. 4 strikers up front. So this is the formation I use primarily for the entire game. Now sometimes your opponent could be playing, for example, a 4-2-3-1 as well. He might be very strong down the middle, down the center. Sometimes you want to change to a wide formation in a game. So that's why I have the 4-4-2 set up. Now 4-4-2 is another formation just as much attacking as, for example, my defensive formation, which is the 4-2-3-1, which is not really defensive, but they're very much the same, except for one is narrow, one is wide. So what you can do is you can have one, for example, like a 4-1-2-1-2 second variation, a 4-2-3-1, a very narrow formation. Maybe you might like to have, for example, a tactic like possession on one. And let's say, for example, you like to play possession with the 4-1-2-1-2, etc., etc. If that's not working, you can then change to the 4-4-2. So the 4-4-2 is quite a wide formation, and I use these formations a lot in the game. So let's say, for example, my opponent's playing very narrow. I can't break him down in the middle. I'll then resort to using a wider formation to exploit the wings, go down the wings, and kind of break him down from the side and make my way inwards. Now, people are asking, what about, for example, the defense? Now, I'll tell you a good tip. The best advice I can give you is don't worry about making 2 formations, one with the exact same formation, one with fullbacks on balance, one on stay back while attacking. You could always push your fullbacks forward using the D-pad tactics, the attacking D-pad tactics, fullbacks join the attack. So you don't actually need to put these guys on balance. You can just put them on stay back while attacking, and whenever you want them to push forward, you just put stay back while attacking. The same thing with your strikers. If you ever want your striker to come back, one of your strikers, he won't come back to defend, but he'll just come back in more reserved position. You could use striker drop back. It's the same thing with the width. The reason why I have high width in this formation is that if I want to ever condense my team and make them narrow, I can just use overload the ball side in game. I press down the D-pad, I use overload the ball side, and then I can change the team to be a very narrow team defensively. It's same with attack. Let's say, for example, with the width, let's say it's a bit of a narrow formation on the width. The 4-4-2 is now. If I want to make the 4-4-2 wide, I just use hug the sidelines, the left mid and right mid, all hug the sidelines, so left back and right back to give me more space. Give me more options on a wing. Same with players in the box. Let's say, for example, I don't have that many players in the box. Let's say I want more players in the box. You can easily modify that by simply just using the D-pad tactic, for example, get into the box for a cross. So all these options can be defined and changed with the D-pad tactic, with the actual, should I say, D-pad attacking tactics, where you press up and down rather than changing formation itself. So always bear that in mind. You can control your formations like that even more. Then, for example, as I said, for example, I have a 4-2-3-1 on false 9. This is kind of be like my pressing from the front with Trent, but the rest of them are fine. This is kind of attacking formation, very narrow. If I can't break someone down, I change to a wide formation. I've got 2 strikers, 2 very good strikers in Neymar and Trent. And I still fit. This is another formation where, for example, I press. So even though they don't come back on offense, because the 4-4-2 naturally covers around 60% of the pitch in attacking areas especially. So that's the reason why I use this formation, because I can press very well and I have players all over the pitch, especially in the core middle. Then you have, for example, an attacking formation. Now this could be an operational formation. Let's say, for example, you can't break them down with the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-4-2. You could use the 5-2-1-2. You could use my blitz formation from last year, which I'll make a video on that soon. You could use you use a 3-5-2. The whole idea is you want different options. You kind of want different options in game. So let's say, for example, it's not working out for you. You can quickly just change to another formation in game and not really worry. That's the kind of the big issue. I see a lot of people that keep pausing the game, making changes when honestly you could have set this up in the beginning. Now what some people do is have one formation throughout. Now this is actually a viable option as well. I used to do this back in the day. When I used to use one formation only, I used to have different types of one formation. So for example, I would have, for example, the 4-2-3-1, and then for example I'll have one 4-2-3-1, for example, on defensive. Let's just say, for example, right, defensive, for example, drop back, possession, for example. I might have another 4-2-3-1, for example, on balanced. I might have a more attacking 4-2-3-1, for example, one on pressure and heavy touch. And I might have, for example, fast build-up play, and I might have, for example, my cam on stay forward. So this is actually a very good tactic. So let's say, for example, you're in a game, you're up against your opponent, and let's say, for example, in the first couple of minutes, you just want to suss out what he's doing. You could use a defensive formation. Let's say you can't break him down with that, then you go to a bit more attacking. Then let's say you still can't break him down, then you go to a bit more attacking. Or let's say, for example, you're losing, then you go to a bit more attacking. So like, it's kind of like a progressive scale. This is a very effective tactic as well. So if you only use one tactic, let's say you use the 4-2-3-1 the entire game, or the 5-2-1-2. For example, even a 5-3-2, you could have, for example, a 5-3-2, for example. You could have a 5-3-2 setup where you have the 5 defender formation, my 5-3-2, and you have one, for example, where one of them on your centre mids are on get forward. And then let's say, for example, in your head, you could have one where all three of your centre mids are on stay back while attacking, so you don't concede. So that is the key. Just have different variations. So whether you have different formations, one for wide, one for narrow, one experimental formation, one all-out attack formation, one offensive formation, or you have, for example, all the same formation but like a progressive scale where like each increment it gets either a different playstyle each increment, or for example it gets more attacking each playstyle. Is actually very effective. Anyway, that's the way I use it. As I said, I always start my balance formation. I press L2. Then once you've configured, for example, let's say I want to use a 4-2-3-1, 5-3-2, and all I do is I press save. Like that. I press save. So as you can see, my main formation, which you're going to see in a second, this does not change. But if I go to squad actions, if I go to custom tactics, and then, for example, I see them, so as you can see, they still work, the positions are correct. And in game, what I can do is, for example, I can change using my D-pad tactic by pressing left or right on my D-pad tactics, and I can change in game. And don't forget as well, formations do take some time to change. So if you make, for example, a change from a 4-2-3-1 defensive to the 4-3-1 attacking, remember there could be, for example, about a 2-3 minute transition period in game time, for example. Sometimes it's matter if the ball to go out of play, for example. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take it easy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace out, boys.